The story of modern America is usually told through presidents, wars, and inventions. But there is another force that shaped the nation just as powerfully: money. And not just money, but the people who controlled it. In the shadows of political speeches and industrial achievements, one banking dynasty quietly designed the financial blueprint of the United States. They built the backbone of American railroads, guided the rise of corporate giants, rescued the government when it was on the verge of collapse, and shaped Wall Street into what it is today. This is the story of the House of Morgan, the dynasty founded by Junius Spencer Morgan and expanded by his legendary son, John Pierpont Morgan, a man whose financial decisions were so influential that newspapers once wrote, "If Morgan sneezes, Wall Street catches a cold." Before the skyscrapers, before the Federal Reserve, before modern capitalism itself, the Morgan family was already constructing the foundations of a new economic world. To understand their power, we need to go back to the mid-1800s, a time when America was young, chaotic, and financially unstable. The nation had no central bank, and its currencies were constantly fluctuating. Investors in Europe viewed the United States as a risky frontier full of potential, but also full of bankruptcies and failed banks. Junius Morgan, working in London with the respected merchant banker George Peabody, helped change this perception. He convinced European investors that certain American businesses were worth financing and that disciplined American bankers could be trusted. When Junius took over the firm in 1864 and renamed it J.S. Morgan & Co., he set the stage for America to receive massive foreign investment. These inflows of capital later helped fund the railroads, steel mills, and factories that defined the nation's industrial revolution. Junius Morgan became a financial bridge between the old world and the new world, building the credibility America desperately needed. While Junius was building trust abroad, his son J.P. Morgan was shaping the future at home. Born in 1837, J.P. was groomed from childhood to become a financial titan. After studying in Switzerland and Germany, he returned to the United States with a sharp mind, a global perspective, and an unusual ability to assess risk instantly. In 1871, he partnered with the banker Anthony Drexel to form Drexel, Morgan & Co., which later evolved into J.P. Morgan & Co. Unlike other bankers of his time, Morgan did not gamble on wild speculation. Instead, he focused on stabilizing industries that were falling apart. The American railroad system, the largest business sector of the late 19th century, was collapsing due to mismanagement and fierce competition. Morgan stepped in, reorganizing several major railroads, replacing corrupt executives, merging inefficient companies, and enforcing strict accounting practices. By the 1880s, he controlled significant portions of the nation's rail network, earning the nickname the Railroad Czar. His influence created the model of modern corporate management. Morgan's appetite for consolidation didn't stop with railroads. The next target was steel. At the turn of the century, America needed steel for buildings, bridges, battleships, and rail lines. But the industry was messy, divided, and inefficient. Using his reputation and negotiation skills, Morgan brought together several major steel producers, including Andrew Carnegie's massive operations. In 1901, he created United States Steel Corporation, the world's first billion-dollar company. It produced more steel than the entire British Empire and became a symbol of America's industrial might. Morgan did not produce the steel himself. Instead, he produced order. He believed that stability, efficiency, and predictability were necessary for economic growth, and through mergers, reorganizations, and financial discipline. He shaped entire industries according to these principles. But perhaps the most dramatic demonstration of Morgan's power came during financial crises. In 1895, the United States Treasury was running out of gold, threatening the stability of the dollar. Without gold reserves, the government risked default, panic, and economic collapse. President Grover Cleveland turned to J.P. Morgan, who organized a private syndicate of bankers to supply the government with more than $60 million worth of gold. The rescue stabilized the currency and restored confidence. But the real test came in 1907. That year, a major speculation scandal caused banks and trust companies to fail across the country. Panic spread as depositors lined up to withdraw their money. There was no Federal Reserve yet. There was no government emergency plan. It was J.P. Morgan who locked leading bankers inside his library, forced them to cooperate, directed capital into failing institutions, and single-handedly stopped the collapse of the American financial system. Newspapers declared him the uncrowned king of America. The government learned a hard lesson. No private individual should ever again be responsible for saving the entire nation's economy. This led directly to the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1913, just months after Morgan's death. Ironically, the central bank was designed to replace the need for someone like J.P. Morgan, but the Morgan influence didn't. Disappear J.P. Morgan & Co. remained one of the most important financial institutions in the country. It financed General Electric, supported the growth of AT&T, and played a key role in international finance after World War I. The Morgan partners, known for their formal culture and gray suits, were considered the most elite bankers on Wall Street. Even foreign governments borrowed from them. The empire built by J.P. Morgan was so disciplined and so well respected that it shaped global finance for decades. One thing that made the Morgan dynasty unique was its philosophy of power. The Rockefellers built their fortune through oil. The Vanderbilts built theirs through shipping and railroads. The Rothschilds became famous across Europe for government finance. But the Morgans practiced something different. They combined trust, influence, and stability. J.P. Morgan believed that a banker's reputation mattered more than profit. He once said, "A man I do not trust could not get money from me on all the bonds in Christendom." This reputation allowed him to calm markets and negotiate massive mergers that no one else could organize. The Morgan brand became synonymous with reliability, even when their decisions were controversial or unpopular. Many Americans feared that the family had too much power, but they also recognized that when Morgan stepped in, chaos seemed to stop. The dynasty's power eventually shifted after the Great Depression. When new laws restricted how banks could operate, J.P. Morgan & Co. was forced to separate its commercial banking and investment banking divisions. This led to the creation of Morgan Stanley, which later became a giant on Wall Street. Meanwhile, the original Morgan Bank evolved into what is now J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest banks in the world. Although the Morgan family itself no longer controls these institutions, the culture, structure, and systems they created remain deeply embedded in American finance. Their empire has outlived economic crashes, regulatory changes, and even the family leadership that founded it. Few dynasties in history have seen their influence last this long or spread this widely. And yet, despite their enormous impact, the Morgan dynasty maintained a surprisingly quiet public presence. Unlike other wealthy families who built mansions and public legacies, the Morgans preferred privacy. Even J.P. Morgan, known for his boldness, avoided the spotlight whenever possible. His power came not from public praise but from private authority. He understood that true influence doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be felt. His decisions shaped industries, rescued governments, and created economic systems that still exist today. Modern America's corporate structure, financial regulations, and banking networks all trace some part of their origins to the House of Morgan. As we look at the skyscrapers, stock exchanges, and multinational corporations that define today's world, it becomes clear that America's rise was not just the result of innovation and democracy, but also the product of strategic financial leadership. The Morgan dynasty didn't simply fund companies, they designed the rules of the game. They brought order to chaos, discipline to growth, and structure to a rapidly changing economy. Their legacy lives on in every credit system, every financial merger, every central bank intervention, and every major corporation that relies on stable capital to survive. The impact of the Morgan dynasty is so deeply woven into American life that most people never notice it. But the foundations they built still hold up the modern financial world. If you found this story fascinating and want to explore more hidden financial histories, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Historianomica, and turn on notifications. Every day we uncover the powerful, surprising, and often invisible forces that shaped our world. Join the journey. Share this video with someone curious about how money truly works, and stay tuned for the next chapter in the untold stories of global finance.